welcome back to the Healing in Nature Stories. And today I am honored to hold space for Kristine's story of profound grief and loss and how she found ways to let nature hold her, heal her, and really help her keep going. She's the founder of the Wandering Soul Sisters. She's a passionate community builder. She's a certified forest therapy guide and a grief coach. Kristine is also studying outdoor recreation and human services with a dream of opening a grief retreat center to really support others on their healing journeys with grief through nature. So, Kristine, thank you so much for being here. And again, I am so honored that you're joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, how about just share a little bit about who you are and how you got into this space and whatever feels right for you?
Well, my name is Kristine. I am 53 years old. I live in Front Royal, Virginia. I'm about 5 minutes away from the Shenandoah National Park entrance in Front Royal. So often you will find me up there. If not, I'm always in some natural place around the area. I am a mother of three young adults, or I guess I should say three adults now. My youngest is just turned 25, and he has a 3-year old. So I am a grandmother as well. And my grandson's name is River, and my son's name is Jimmy. My middle daughter is Denicia. She goes by Nisi, and she will be 28. Um, I keep on thinking it's like, oh, I can't believe I have a 28-year-old, a 25-year-old, but time does go on. And my oldest daughter, Anna, she would have been 30 this year. I actually lost her in 2019. And she's one of the reasons how I found myself back in nature. She was killed by an impaired driver in 2019. She was only 23. And she, was a big part of my life, is still a big part of my life, and a big part of the reason why I am doing what I'm doing. Not only am I uh, have gone down the route of wanting to help others with their grief, but also, and I do a lot of volunteer speaking at schools, at police academies, community colleges, and whatnot. So she is a big reason of why I'm here and connected to nature. My background, I grew up camping and hiking with my parents. I'm from Virginia, Northern Virginia, lived in Fairfax and Centerville growing up. When I became a mom, we got my kids out hiking and camping. So there was like basically three generations of us out hiking and camping in that. But as they, of course, grew older, I became a single parent. And my life kind of revolved around getting them to school activities, and my camping and hiking kind of took a wayside. That was until about 2015. My dad was diagnosed with cancer in 2009, and he lasted 6 years. He was diagnosed with esophagus cancer. So most of our weekends was either school activities, or they lived in Northern Virginia. So we would spend a lot of time up there on the weekends with my dad and my mom and that. But after he passed in 2015, I was just, my dad was like, he was just a really big supporter for me and my kids. And especially after I got divorced, and, he became like a surrogate dad to my kids. And, losing him was something that like was basically my first bout with grief. 2016, my oldest Anna and Nisi were graduated. So I just had my son who was still in high school. So 2016 kind of I've had a lot of free time. And I found myself in nature. First, when I found myself in nature, I was really into nature photography. So I was like, bought a nice big camera and just really enjoyed, photography. As I went more into doing photography in nature, I found myself going further and further into the woods and to the trails and that. And I soon realized that I really liked hiking, and I kind of put down the camera and picked up the hiking poles and have not looked back. However, I do still take a lot of pictures on my phone. My kids joke all the time about, how many pictures do you have of the same spot? And I always tell them it is not the same spot. Every day that even if I'm, doing a picture in a particular spot that I might take a picture every day, it's something changes. Nature changes with the seasons and it's just totally different. So that's how I kind of found myself back in nature.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. This is sounds like that's been a hard, rough couple years for you. This is not always something that people feel easy to talk about and share openly. Um, but you didn't just, kind of allowed yourself to heal through this, but you also found a purpose in this and you're creating things outside for other people too. And I was wondering, what's your input on a purpose, like purpose wise?
So of course, like, growing up, I was like, I did not know what my purpose was. And in dealing with my dad's death, when my dad passed away and I got back into hiking, I started the Wandering Soul Sisters, and it was the local hiking group, and became very familiar with hiking. I became very active in the hiking community, and that I love where I live because within an hour of any direction, there's always somewhere that I can go in nature, some park, some trail. So where I live, it's really good. But from my dad's death, I got back into hiking, got back into nature, and wanted to share my joy of nature with others. So that's how I started the Wandering Soul Sisters. And then I also became an ambassador or a hike leader for other women hiking groups. And then when my daughter passed in 2019, I started volunteering. I started becoming active in the Potomac Appalachian Trail Club. I have been a silent member of the club for most of my adult life. And for those of you who don't know what or who the Potomac Appalachian Trail Club, they are one of the trail clubs that maintain a section of the Appalachian Trail. Besides the Appalachian Trail, they also maintain trails in Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, DC, and Pennsylvania. So they have over 2,000 miles of trails that they maintain besides the Appalachian Trail. So I became, started volunteering with them first as a trail talker. So basically attending events, talking about the club, what the club does, and I really enjoyed doing that, just given that experience, that expertise in the area of hiking and trails, and basically promoting the club, because I just think the club, what a lot of people don't realize is majority of the trails that we hike, we run, we walk on, are maintained by volunteers. So I'm very active and wanting to promote the club, to get that out there, just to help the club maintain and get other volunteers to help out. From there, I became interested in starting up a new chapter in the club. And I was instrumental in starting a new chapter for the club, the Blue Ridge chapter, which I then became its president, which I didn't want to, but I became its president and helped, basically grow that chapter. Then shortly after, like, they were telling me that they used to have a supervisor of outreach for the club, but the person who was doing that position, he wasn't able to do it anymore. So they asked if I was interested in just stepping into that role. So I was like, okay, why not? And again, I really enjoyed doing that. And I enjoyed my time, volunteering as both the president and the supervisor of outreach. I initiated hiking and volunteer challenges where people would hike a section of the Appalachian Trail and they received a patch. I'm an advocate of getting women and family outdoors, getting basically women outdoors and being comfortable being outdoors. Because one thing that I heard a lot being as the supervisor of outreach was that women, would come up to me and say, like, I would love to go hiking, but I don't want to go by myself. So being able to create that space for women to come together who can hike, backpack, camp together was a very goal of mine to do. So I was able to initiate like women led hikes and women trail summits, and later on women retreats, like where we went camping, hiking, and incorporated yoga and other practices in it. So like I'm a big advocate for getting people outdoors, but especially for women to feel comfortable outdoors. And then you hear of course, different minorities, that they don't feel comfortable. So it's just getting people outdoors to feel comfortable being outdoors. I solo hike a lot and I'm comfortable being outdoors by myself. And it's just, wanting to help other women, become comfortable in what they would like to do in that.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Wow. I was listening to you and I was seeing you on this path walking, and there's an opportunity coming to you, and you're like, yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, that's how it was funny, because like of course losing somebody is always very hard, but the way that I lost Anna was, probably the one, because those that grief is intense, and I had nowhere to put that grief, so I put that grief into my passion, and my passion is hiking, my passion is outdoors. And then I turned that into, like, it was almost turning my grief into my passion and then into my purpose of, one is getting women outdoors, having women comfortable getting outdoors, and just building a community of people who are able to support each other in whatever thing that they're going through. I think it's very important, for a lot of people, but especially for women, just because like we tend to put ourselves last. We have families, we work, we have parents, so making sure that like we as women, are getting out and doing what we love, that we are putting ourselves first and, enjoying life. And that was another big, um, I guess, purpose of mine after losing Anna. She was only 23 when she was killed, and she had so much of her life ahead of her that she will never get to do. So much places that she will never get to see and she will never get to visit. And one of my things that I started doing the year after she was killed is each birthday. So I'm 53, so this started when I was about 48, I think. I started a birthday challenge. So each year if I turned 48, I did 48 challenges. So now I'm working on 53 challenges. And these challenges could be as simple as going to a new restaurant or as more elaborate of going on my first cruise, which I did this year. But a lot of it is, again, going outdoors, spending time outdoors, and just enjoying life, living life to the fullest. And losing somebody the way that I lost Anna, which was very traumatic, is that like I realized life is short. I realized that we are not guaranteed tomorrow. We are not guaranteed today. And I need to live my life to the fullest. I need to like, even though if it scares me, even though if it's like, oh, I don't want to do it, I need to do it. I need to be able to let go of my own fear, my own whatever is holding me back, and just do it.
Hmm. Huh. Wow. It's hearing you speak about it and the way that you decided doing those challenges, I was like, wow, this is incredible because in a way, I could see your new path with her following you. So it's like she helps you with this sad event and traumatic event. She allowed you to step into a new version of you
Yeah.
and allowing you to live life for the fullest. So I think it's a beautiful way to kind of like even honor her.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I am. So she was really outdoors. So when she was killed, she was working two jobs. She was working up at the Shenandoah River State Park as the ranger that would work in the office, welcoming people into the park. And then she was also working at Walmart as a pharmacy tech. So she was getting ready to go back to school. She always wanted to be a X-ray technician working with cancer patients. So she was getting ready to go back to school to do that, to fulfill that dream. And then she was killed. Me and her always talked about Montana. I was able to go to Montana last year and actually attended a retreat, a grief retreat. And that's how I became a grief coach, because I became very interested in the whole thought of helping others through their grief, and incorporating nature in that. So that, like, I'm doing things that, like, one, that I like to do, but two, that, like, Anna. So I always bring a picture of Anna with me when I'm going to these places, and I'm always taking pictures of her and showing her, and I know that she's there with me. I've had experiences where I feel her, and I know that she's just like being my little champion. So, like, after she was killed, I started volunteering with the Potomac Appalachian Trail Club. I went back to school. I got a certificate in outdoor recreation, which kind of brings me back full circle to when I was in my early 20s. When I graduated from high school, I was going to Nova, Northern Virginia Regional Community College, and I was going to become a park ranger. But life, happens, and that did not happen. So it was kind of like going full circle back to that, wanting to become a park ranger. But I ended up getting a certificate in outdoor recreation. And then during this time, I also became a certified forest therapy guide, through the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy Programs. And I actually still lead forest therapy walks. And I lead walks regularly with Seven Bends State Park. And I do it all for free. Like, my thing is, like, I don't want any money. I enjoy what I do, and I want to help people just get reconnected with nature. So it just, like, everything just seems to, like, be rolling along. So then I became a grief coach, and I wanted to do a little bit different, because I wanted to incorporate nature into my grief coaching program. So I started working on doing that. I am working on, like, hosting a women grief circles where we would meet in nature. We would basically kind of like have a little 2-hour session where we would meditate. We would go on a solo walk. There would be a prompt. We would come back, and I want to incorporate yoga. I want to incorporate other things in it. So it's just like working through nature to help others, as it has helped me.
Mm, yeah, that's so beautiful. It's so beautiful how you're outlining it and how all the things are getting connected and
Yeah,
kind of make sense in a way, even though it's not always makes sense,
yeah, yeah,
but finding the sense in it
yeah,
regardless.
yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm curious if you're okay sharing at the moment when you experience this such a strong grief. I feel like in my normal state of mind, I would think, wow, I will go down the hill and I will be depressed and I would not want to do anything and I will blame the world for what happened. I'm curious how you navigated around this. What did you do?
Well, of course, like, my dad's death was a little bit different. Like, my dad's death, his was because of his cancer. And he went peacefully. He was on hospice for the last 2 weeks of his life. He slipped into a coma the last day that he was alive. He was transitioning to the other side. When we came in to say goodbye, my dad woke up as Anna came in crying. And as Anna kind of led, kind of, sorry, as Anna kind of laid down and gave him a kiss, and my dad woke up. And I don't know, my dad whispered something to her, and I don't know what he said, but, like, he whispered something to her, and, like, I could see that she understood what he had said, and he fell back into sleep. And I like to like, I always talk about how I like to think that he had told her when her time comes that he will meet her and he will walk her over to the other side. So I think on that morning of her death, Anna was killed on impact. And I like to think that my dad was there and my dad held her and walked her over to the other side when Anna was killed. It was hard. And I did go through, I mean, I still, like, there's days that I still can't believe it's been 6 years and I still can't believe she's gone. Um, and like they always say, like, it gets easier, it gets easier. No, it never gets easier. You just are able to hold it differently. I wouldn't say deal with it because you don't deal with it. It's just you hold it differently. And that's how I feel like I am now. But in the very first stages of grief, in the very first months of grief, because that first year you're going through all the first. Um, Anna was killed on February 19th. She was less than 2 months before her 24th birthday. So we had her first birthday within 2 months after her death. We went to Outer Banks. But initially, like, where I found solace, like, in my dad's passing, like, that first 2 to 3 months, I could not go into nature. I found that the silence of the woods was too loud for my grief. I just could not be alone with my grief in the woods. Um, at, Anna worked at Shenandoah National Park, and there was this trail that I would walk to. It's called the Overlook Trail, so it's only a short half a mile to the visitor center. And I found myself, when I could get into the woods, I found myself wanting to walk that, but I could never make it to the visitor center. And I could not understand why. I'm like, I've done this a million times. Why can't I make it to the visitor center? Then I realized that because Anna wasn't there. So a lot of times I would, walk this trail, go to the visitor center, visit Anna. And it was when I realized that I couldn't do it because she wasn't there, it kind of like unblocked um, the grief. And I was, after that point, I was able to find myself back in the woods. I was able, the quiet, the comfort that the trails couldn't provide to me in the beginning was able to provide to me after I had that initial block. But the first, I had to say, like, the first couple of months is hard, is really extremely hard. When you lose somebody that, you never, because who, as a parent, you never think that you would have to bury your child. You never think yet that you would have to say goodbye, or that you would never see them again, that they would never grow old, they would never have a family. You don't think that. And when you have to go through that, it just throws everything off. Um, like everybody else, like, grief is individual. Each person deals with grief individually. There's no right or wrong way to deal with grief, but and you will go through everything. I was so mad at the world. I was so mad at the guy who killed Anna, at just life, and like, why did the person who hit her lived? Um um yeah, so it took a while for me to kind of like say, it took a while for me to, like, how did I say it, that she was gone. Like, because there would be times where I would think that, it was just a dream. I would wake up, it's like, it's just a dream. But I also had two other kids, even though at that time they were young adults. Nisi was 21 when she was killed, um, and my son was 18. So I had them that I had to think about, because, like, as most people know, all the attention is placed on the parents, on the mom, and that a lot, they were kind of like left in the background in that. So I had to make sure that they were okay. So I couldn't fall apart too much. um, and A lot of times, so it was them that kept me in check in that.
Mm, mm, mm. That's wh- when you were sharing about your dad was whispering to her, how you brought it back and the way that you look at it. I think it's a very, I want to say maybe like a comforting thing. Sounds like it's brings some comfort. Um, and holding it differently, you said,
Yeah.
holding grief differently. It's also such a powerful way to see it. And I can totally see how you are able to be a grief coach and support people on this journey because you had this consecutive things happen to you that kind of pushed you to this place of like, I have to continue, I have to move. How can I make this all make sense? And especially you have the other kids, like you said, it's so important. They also had a loss and
Yeah.
they maybe don't know how to deal with it. So this is like it's such a wider perspective. Mm. It's something that doesn't leave you, but it's something that you metamorphose around and work with the things. And I wonder if when people come to you or if somebody listen to this and they are in the midst of it all and they don't know what they can do, they're not sure where to go, how to like start this, moving forward with their lives, with everything that happened, what would you tell them?
I would tell them to take it day by day. That grief, will stay with us. It is a lifelong journey that, there are good days and there are bad days. That they need to seek support, whether it's through friends, families, grief coach, grief counselor, um, somebody, but seek that support out. That's one thing that, we're told as grief coach is that you have your tribe. Whether it is complete strangers attending a grief circle or a grief group, but just finding some community. I'm really big on community and finding support through the things that you love. Do the things that you love. Don't give up on the things that you love because sometimes those are the one things that get you through the day. I know, like, there's days that, like, I have to go out for a hike or I have to go out for a walk just to clear my head. If it's creating art, if it is singing, if it is dancing, find something that you enjoy and do it. If it's something new, if there's something new that you want to try, just find something. Life is very precious. Um, Grief will be a part of you, and that's like the one thing that, like, it doesn't have a end date. You grow with it. You learn to be gentle with yourself. That's also a big, big thing that I would tell people: be gentle with yourself. You are becoming somebody new through your loss. Um, and that you have to learn to be gentle with yourself. When you need to sleep, you sleep. When you need to, like, say, okay, I just can't deal with it anymore. I just need to, for 5 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour a day of just being by myself, you need to learn to take care of yourself because, you have to live with it. You have to let it basically engulf you and then transform you.
Thank you. A very valuable tip. Um, I'm curious if your experience, because you've been in nature since you were growing up, going in and out, but is your experience have changed with when after the grief compared to what was going on before, how you related to nature?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Because, like, before, it was like a fun thing. Like, I didn't see it as a tool. I didn't see nature, and I hate to say that, a tool, but I didn't see nature as as medicine. Like I just saw, oh, it's fun. Like, I enjoy it. So it's not only if you've lost somebody, but a lot of times, like, we are so, as a society, we are so disconnected from nature. So my whole thing is like, I want to work with grief people dealing with grief, but I also want to work with people who want to reconnect with nature. Between the cell phones, the social media, the TVs, we have become a society who is glued to our TVs, that we have let nature kind of escape us. And it's like coming
Mhm.
home. We are part of nature. We are nature. So, after losing, my dad, but especially after losing Anna, I find such solace in nature. And it's funny because, like, I talk about, like, I explore everywhere, so I will go anywhere. But it's like I have certain places that if I'm feeling a certain way, that it's this particular place I know I have to go to. It's this place I have to go to. But my whole thing is, we are nature. We cannot survive without nature. We need to learn how to reconnect. We need to learn how to live with nature within ourselves.
Mm. Yeah, I love it. I always refer to nature a little bit as medicine.
Yeah,
I am a nurse, so for me, I always say, I don't want to give you pills. I want to give you a walk in the
yeah,
forest.
yeah,
And how you're saying that there is the specific locations or traits that you're choosing, it's as if like you're taking a specific medicine for whatever is going on,
yeah.
condition that you're feeling. So I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah, and like a lot, and it's funny that you mentioned that, like, with the nursing, with the medical field, there is actually a lot of practices that are returning to nature, that like they're prescribing walks, they're prescribing going to the forest, they're prescribing like meditation, So I think even though like we have become disconnected, I think we are trying to find our way back to nature. And it's really good that, the medical field is starting to see that a walk in the park could be as good as prescribing a medicine. I know actually doctors who will prescribe, go take a walk, go find this. And that's one thing I like about, like, the forest therapy programs or the nature programs, is it's teaching people how to basically connect with nature and just be present, because that's one thing I think, that we are missing, that we are not present. So, leading these walks through, Seven Bends, like people will come up all the time, like, I'm so glad I attended this walk. I have people that come back over and over and will attend the same walk, and they're like, I just didn't realize like the sound, or, it's just amazing to hear and to see people with that connection.
Yes, love it. Yes, I feel like there's nothing more exciting to me when I see people like paying attention to the details, like it was always there, but just now you
Yeah,
noticed. And it's like,
yeah,
whoa,
yeah.
a whole world.
Yeah.
Ah, woo. Thank you, Christine. Thank you so much for just being here and being open and sharing such a deep, hard, emotional story, and just your journey of growing and evolving and all the amazing things that you're now doing, which I'm going to put all your information there for people. If anybody wants to reach out, find anything about your programming, I think this is such a great resource. It's just beautiful. Oh,
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you so much for sharing. It was really powerful. It's very inspiring when people are, there's so many things happening, and I'm actually curious to know how some people, like, I wish there, maybe there's a research about it, but how some people are able to grow out of the things that, like, what's inside us, what's quality do we have that allow some of us to go beyond and find this new way of life compared to people who don't, who kind of get sucked in this.
Yeah.
So, I think it's very, yeah, it's very interesting to me. But I want, by doing this, I want, if people listening, it's like all these people who've gone through this and went to the other side, there's like, wow, all these people did it. I can do it too, kind
Yeah,
of thing,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know? So,
It is amazing. I think it also definitely depends on well, each death is unique and each grief experience is unique. When I attended this grief retreat, there was this mom who had lost her son. The son committed suicide. Um, and I think it was 3 years. And she was still so profoundly affected. So, it's
mm,
not only like losing somebody, but it's how they lose the person. And then there was this other young lady who had lost her significant other. He committed suicide too. And
mm,
just following them and watching their journey. She's now in a relationship and she's just like, she's such a light, and it's just like, it does like how grief affects people differently and how
mm,
like they, you know, I don't want to say how they not overcome because you don't overcome it, but like just how it changes them. Like sometimes, unfortunately, people can't get out of the grief. They're
mm,
stuck in that horrible, horrible part of the grief where they see no tomorrow. That like, my
mm,
life is over because I lost, my husband, my child. They can't see through their own grief. Um,
mm,
and then there's others that like, are able to move past, not necessarily move past, but like move forward. Like with me, like my daughter's death, even my dad's death. Um, I also lost my mom a year after Anna was killed. It was 2020. She was diagnosed in November of 2019 um, with cancer. My Anna was my oldest child, was also my parents' first grandchild. So my parents were very connected um, with Anna. And like my mom, who had a really strong will to live, like after she found out, like, so my mom only lasted like less than 2 months. She passed away
mm,
January 25th. And it's also like my mom's death was a lot harder than my dad's. Like both of them were on hospice, but both of them had a different death experience. I witnessed my dad's was very peaceful, my mom's was not. Hers was in her kidneys, but it basically went to her lungs and her brain. I was such in grief when my dad passed. And of course, I was such in grief when Anna passed. But I feel like I really haven't grieved my mom because I'm still grieving Anna.
mm,
And because my mom passed less than a year after Anna died. So I'm still in that early part, what I consider the early part of grieving Anna. When my mom passed, I just felt relieved because I was there at the end. I saw what she went through. I saw that all that. Yeah, it was just horrible.
mm,
And all I felt for my mom, I didn't feel, and I hate to say it, I didn't feel sad. I just felt relief because my mom was not in any of that pain. My mom's basically because she was put on oxygen and she was sent home, which she probably never should have been sent home because she was on a really high dose of oxygen.
mm,
Um, she hallucinated, and her death, like I said, her death was just totally different from my dad's death. And I know if my mom had been there, I know what the last 24 hours, that was not my mom. She was
mm,
transitioning to the other side. And I know if she had been present, she would not have wanted to go that way.
mm,
And I just think of like that, like, on one hand, I kind of like, I'm sad that I wasn't able to grieve my mom, but I know my mom, she would not have wanted to go that way. Her death was just horrible. Just witnessing it. And it was just such relief when she passed because she wasn't in that pain. And
Mm.
even to this day, like even after experiencing like my dad's death and my mom's death and Anna's death, like I have told my kids, it's like, because both of them were on hospice, I do not want to be at home on hospice. I would not want to put my kids through that. Um,
Mm.
the anticipatory grief is just like one thing that like a lot of people don't really talk about, because it's like, you're going through the hospice part, you're grieving your parents when they're still alive and they haven't passed away yet, but you're leading up to it. And I guess, a lot of people, that that is hard. It's also another thing is like I've had people who've had relatives, like their parents, like their spouses, who have had Alzheimer's or 10 plus years, and they're living with that and that anticipatory grief, having to deal with that every day. And then when their spouse dies, yeah, so it's just like the relief, like, you're sad, but it's the relief part. So grief is just, it's horrible sometimes.
Oh, I
There's so
bet.
many forms of grief. There's no timeline on grief, and everybody doesn't grieve in the same way. Like, my grief for my dad, my grief for my daughter, my grief for my mom, I handled their deaths differently. The grief handled me differently in each of those aspects of it, too. So it's just like you can have one person, you can have um, multiple grief episodes or grief experiences that are totally different from one another. And like a lot of people don't realize that. Yeah. And even like, so with me, my own journey through grief, I've also had to deal with my son. My son and I were estranged for 2 years. Um, he was home when the state police showed up, and he was the first one that found out about Anna. He was only 18. Um, and I know he's one, being a man, being a male, he doesn't talk about his grief. He doesn't talk about, he doesn't hardly talk about Anna at all. Where me and my middle daughter, Nisi, we kind of joke sometimes about her and that. Um, and me and my daughter's relationship grew through her death, after her death.
Mm.
Where me and my son, we grew apart. He got into a relationship right after Anna was killed, and I think formed a trauma bond with this girlfriend, which is the mother of River. And he, for whatever reason, um, he just couldn't deal with it. And so we were estranged for 2 years. Now he's back. Like both of my kids are living with me now, which is real fun. But like there's also, which I'm sure you've heard of, like, there a lot of young adults are being estranged from their parents and that. So it's also that grief is grieving somebody who's alive but is no longer a part of your life. So it's like, I've had to deal with different sets of grief, because when I was at the grief retreat, I dealt with that a lot more so than the death of Anna, because that was like, so it's just like there's so many, and like, you can grieve if you have a divorce. So when I divorced, my ex-husband was very emotionally and physically abusive. Um, so there's that grief. So it's like people also don't realize that grief is just not comes from death. It comes from lived experiences, good and bad, so
Yeah. That's a really good point. Like, when you were talking about like expecting people to pass or like a person who's in your life but like is not really in your life. It's really good point. Wow. I feel like it's like an octopus.
yes, yeah, yeah, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, and when I held one of my last, well, my second to last camping retreat, like um women events, I talked with this lady. She's in her 50s and was married for most of her adult life and had just decided that she wasn't happy, and that, her and her husband were not divorced yet, but they had been separated for a year. So he was thinking that they were going to get together. And she's like, no, like I've grown, like, so the grief comes in so many different forms that we don't realize a lot. So it's very interesting. And that's why it's like, I want to work with people who not only lost a loved one, but who's going through some traumatic experience. And it doesn't even have to be traumatic, it could be just a divorce, a relationship, moving. Parents talk about becoming a what is it called, an empty nester. Because then there's that whole, like, you were a mom, you were a parent for 18, 20, 25 years, 23 years, and then all of a sudden you are left by yourself. And what do you do? Like, who am I now? Like, so there
Mm,
is that grief. And I
yeah.
have dealt with all of them, like, because, like, before my son was estranged, both Nisi and Jimmy moved out of the house, and it was just me. So, and they were gone for 2 years. And that's really when my birthday adventure started, because I had
Good.
this time to explore in that. But it's also, that life stage. There's life stages. Like, I'm 53 now, and, my, like, what am I going to be doing? So it's like everything. Yeah.
Wow. Yes. Wow. Well, I'm so glad you're in this field because I can tell how passionate you are
Yeah.
and you just have so much to share because you just have this personal experience that cannot change anything in the world.
Yeah.
So, it's amazing that you can change people's lives through doing
Yeah.
this. This is so cool. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. It was really powerful. All right. Well, I think we're done for the day, and guess I'll see you on the next one.